After decades of waiting, the long-delayed legal saga over Tupac Shakur's murder finally has a trial date. The case is now scheduled to go to trial on August 10, 2026, this summer. The man charged with his murder is Keefe D. Davis, and he just suffered a major courtroom loss that could shape how the trial unfolds. In this update, I'm going to break down what happened this week, what a judge recently ruled on, and why this case has taken so long to get to trial. If you've been following this case, you already know a few key facts. Keefe D has been in custody for years while awaiting trial. During that time, he even received additional jail time for an unrelated incident, a fight that occurred while he was already in jail. It's a wild twist that shows just how long and complicated this process has become. Pushpin what happened this week. On Tuesday, a judge issued a ruling on a suppression motion that Keefe D's defense filed back in December 2025. Here's the background. In December, Keefe D's lawyers asked the court to suppress a large amount of evidence, meaning they wanted certain evidence excluded from being used at trial. This included several of his own recorded statements. If you follow this case, you know that Keefe D has made multiple public statements over the years. Some of those statements include admissions about his presence at the shooting, and at times he has publicly referred to involvement in events surrounding the crime. But in this recent hearing, the judge ruled against the defense, saying none of the evidence will be suppressed. Everything they asked to exclude, including the defendant's own statements, will now be admissible at trial. Pushpin what evidence was at issue. Among the material the defense wanted excluded, statements Keefe D allegedly made over time related to the case. Items seized during a nighttime search of his home in 2023. Anything they claimed was obtained improperly or should be thrown out before trial. In their suppression filing, the defense argued that Keefe D had left that lifestyle behind, that he was living quietly in Las Vegas with his wife, working a legitimate job, and no longer involved in criminal activity. The government countered that the evidence was lawfully obtained and should be used at trial, and the judge agreed. So as of now, everything prosecutors asked to use is still on the table. Pushpin, why does this matter? This ruling is a big deal for a few reasons. Heavy checkmark statements the defendant made, including things he said publicly, can now be used at trial. Heavy checkmark physical evidence seized during the 2023 search remains admissible. Heavy checkmark the defense lost a key legal strategy that could have weakened the prosecution's case. This sets the stage for a trial that prosecutors will likely argue is stronger and more comprehensive than what was available years ago. Pushpin, why has it taken so long? A few reasons. Hourglass not on complexity. This case depends on decades-old events, witness statements, public claims, and newly obtained physical evidence. Calendar delay tactics, defense motions, evidentiary disputes, and procedural challenges have added years. Balance scale supplemental charges. While awaiting trial, Keefe D got additional jail time for unrelated conduct, which has added layers to his legal situation. Pushpin, what happens now? With the judge's suppression ruling in place and a trial date set for August 10, 2026, the case is finally moving forward after years in limbo. Expect Right Arrow pretrial hearings in the coming months. Right Arrow prosecutors finalizing their evidence lists. Right Arrow defense preparing arguments around credibility, context, and interpretation of statements. This trial will be one of the most closely watched in hip-hop history, not just because of who the victim was, but because of how long it has taken and how many twists have emerged along the way. So his defense paints a very different picture of him. They say he was living quietly in Las Vegas, a grandfather, a cancer survivor, someone who had moved on from that old lifestyle. According to his lawyers, police mischaracterized him as some active gang figure when, in their view, that wasn't who he was anymore. They also argue that he cooperated with law enforcement in the past. His attorneys claim investigators left out key context in their warrant application and portrayed him as a repeat violent felon with a gun arrest. The defense says much of that history was more than 25 years old. As for the gun arrest in 2016, they point out that it did not result in a conviction. Another major issue centers on a 2008 proffer agreement in Los Angeles. Davis has argued that law enforcement violated that agreement. He claims information he shared under that proffer later surfaced publicly and was used against him. In one court filing, the name of Sean Diddy Combs reportedly appeared numerous times because Davis had previously claimed that, in the mid-1990s, Combs offered money related to Tupac. It's important to note that Combs has never been charged in connection with Tupac's murder and has denied any involvement. Davis himself has also said he never received any money. There are also long-standing claims that the conflict that night stemmed from tensions involving death row medallions. Earlier that evening in September 1996, there was a physical altercation at the MGM Grand in Las Vegas involving Tupac Shakur and Orlando Anderson, who was later identified by investigators as the alleged shooter and was Davis's nephew. That confrontation has been widely described as a key event leading up to the shooting. Because the case is now nearly 3 decades old, there are still many unanswered questions. Unlike modern cases, there isn't extensive high-definition surveillance footage or digital evidence easily available. Much of the case relies on witness statements, prior admissions, and historical investigation. Many people feel a sense of frustration, either wanting a conviction or at least a final resolution after so many years. Prosecutors argue that Davis held influence within his circle at the time, that if he directed something, others would have followed. The defense disputes that characterization. Recently, the judge ruled that the search warrant used in 2023 was valid. That means anything seized from his home can be introduced at trial. The judge also ruled that Davis's prior statements can be used as evidence. Over the years, Davis has spoken publicly about the case and even published a memoir in 2019 discussing his version of events. In interviews, including one with Vlad TV, he described what allegedly happened inside the car that night. He has claimed that Eric Zip Martin supplied the firearm and that the weapon was passed to Orlando Anderson, who then fired the shots at Tupac and Suge Knight. Both Anderson and Martin have since passed away. Now, with the trial set for August 10, 2026, all of these statements, along with physical evidence, are expected to play a central role when the case finally goes before a jury. It's understandable why people say the courtroom moment could be surreal. If prosecutors play recordings of Dwayne Keefe D. Davis describing that night in his own words, and he's sitting there listening to those clips in front of a jury, that's going to be powerful. Jurors tend to weigh a defendant's own statements very heavily, especially when those statements were made voluntarily in interviews or published in a book. The trial is currently set for August 10, 2026, and it has been delayed multiple times, reportedly due to health concerns, discovery disputes, and other procedural issues while he's been in custody. Long-running cases like this often get pushed back repeatedly, especially when there are decades of material to sort through. About the Vlad TV interview clip. In the interview you referenced with DJ Vlad, Davis describes the moments leading up to the shooting involving Tupac Shakur and Suge Knight. What stands out legally isn't just what he said, it's how inconsistent some of the details appear to be. In portions of the interview, and in his memoir, he suggests, Tupac made a movement as if reaching. He thought Tupac might have had a gun. Shots were fired from his vehicle. Orlando Anderson leaned over and fired. But in other moments, including that same interview, he says he didn't actually see a gun, that once Tupac reached down, he ducked. From a legal standpoint, that inconsistency matters. Why this is important for trial. The prosecution will likely